The Great Canadian Student Betrayal. How thousands of international graduates are being forced to leave. Welcome back to Canada Chronicles. If you're an international student in Canada, or you're planning to study here, this is urgent. Major immigration changes are shaking the future of thousands of students, and the situation is far worse than most realize. For years, Canada has been a top choice for students worldwide, offering world-class education and a clear pathway to building a future here. But in 2025, everything is changing. Stricter immigration rules are shutting down opportunities, leaving graduates stranded, and forcing thousands to leave, even those who have lived, worked, and contributed to Canada for years. So, what exactly is happening? Why is the government making it harder for international students to stay? And most importantly, what happens next for those caught in this crisis? Stay with us, because we're breaking down everything you need to know, from the drastic cuts in study permits to the new restrictions on work permits that are leaving thousands without options. And trust me, you'll want to watch until the end, because we'll also reveal what happens when thousands of postgraduate work permit holders suddenly find themselves out of status and forced to leave. If you're an international student, or you care about the future of immigration in Canada, this is a video you can't afford to miss. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss an update. Let's get started. Canada's immigration landscape is changing. And it's not good news for students. For decades, Canada has been one of the most sought-after destinations for international students. Its top-tier universities, diverse culture, and post-graduation work opportunities have attracted students from all over the world. Many didn't just come for an education, they came for a future. They saw Canada as a place where they could study, work, and eventually become permanent residents. But 2025 marks a turning point. Over the past year, the Canadian government has introduced sweeping changes that shut doors for thousands of international graduates. What was once a structured pathway to permanent residency is now an uncertain and restrictive process, filled with new roadblocks and forced removals. Many of these students built their lives in Canada, believing they had a fair chance at staying. But under the new rules, they are being asked to pack up and leave, many with no job, no security, and no future here. Today, we break down why these policies are being enforced, how they are affecting students, and the economic and ethical consequences of Canada's latest immigration crackdown. Drastic cuts to international study permits. One of the most shocking policy changes in 2025 is the massive reduction in international study permits. Thousands of students who were preparing to study in Canada have suddenly found themselves ineligible, facing uncertainty and rejection. The government says these cuts are necessary to manage population growth, ease housing shortages, and reduce pressure on public services. But critics argue that this decision is short-sighted and economically reckless. Just 2 years ago, Canada welcomed over 550,000 international students. But in 2024, the government slashed that number by 35%, approving only 360,000 study permits. Now in 2025, the government has reduced that number further to 437,000, leaving thousands scrambling for alternatives. The justification is that major cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Montreal are experiencing record-breaking rent increases, and some officials blame international students as a contributing factor. However, many experts argue that Canada's housing crisis is not caused by students, but by poor government planning, lack of affordable housing projects, and real estate speculation. Rather than fixing these systemic issues, the government appears to be placing the blame on international students. Meanwhile, Canada's Minister of Immigration, Mark Miller, has also criticized universities and colleges for over-relying on Indian students, pushing institutions to diversify recruitment and seek applicants from other regions. This shift signals a deliberate effort to control the student population and reshape the demographics of immigration. But for students already in Canada, the biggest shock is yet to come: the new restrictions on postgraduate work permits. Postgraduate work permits are no longer guaranteed. One of the biggest reasons international students chose Canada was the postgraduate work permit program, which allowed them to work in Canada after finishing their studies. This work experience helped them transition to permanent residency. But in late 2024, the government dramatically changed the rules, and now, in 2025, thousands of graduates are discovering that they no longer qualify for a work permit. Instead of automatically receiving a 3-year postgraduate work permit, graduates are now required to meet stricter eligibility criteria. The government is prioritizing certain industries while shutting out others. Fields like STEM, healthcare, and skilled trades are still being supported, but students from business, humanities, and other general fields are being left behind. To make matters worse, a language proficiency requirement has also been introduced. Even students who qualify for a work permit must now pass additional English or French language tests before they can work. Thousands of graduates who had planned their futures around working in Canada are now being told they must leave. The rules have changed mid-game, and now, their careers, finances, and futures are in jeopardy. The silent deportation. What happens when PGWPs expire? Thanks for staying with us this far. We appreciate your time and hope you're finding this information valuable. Now, let's talk about what happens when thousands of postgraduate work permit holders suddenly find themselves out of status. For years, Canada positioned itself as a land of opportunity where international graduates could stay, work, and contribute to the economy. But in 2025, that promise has been shattered. Thousands of students who expected to stay are now being forced to leave. The issue is simple. Postgraduate work permits are non-renewable. Once they expire, students must either secure permanent residency, obtain another work permit, or leave Canada. But with PR pathways becoming more competitive and alternative work permits harder to obtain, many students have no choice but to leave. Adding to the uncertainty, many graduates now find themselves in a legal gray area, trapped between expiring visas and long processing times for permanent residency applications. Some are being told to leave before their applications are even reviewed, forcing them to abandon job offers, housing leases, and years of investment in Canada. The psychological toll is immense, as students who followed the rules and contributed to the country are suddenly left without any viable options. The government insists this is not deportation, but for these students, it feels like one. They have built lives, jobs, and communities in Canada, only to be told their time is up. What happens next? Canada's economy and global reputation at risk. These changes won't just hurt students, they will also damage Canada's economy and global reputation. Canada relies heavily on international students. They contribute billions of dollars to universities, the rental market, and businesses. Many take jobs in healthcare, construction, hospitality, and technology, filling labor shortages. But if international students start choosing other countries like Australia, the UK, or Germany, Canada's education sector could suffer major financial losses. The long-term impact could be devastating. Beyond financial losses, Canada's reputation as a top study destination is at risk. Countries that once looked to Canada as a model for progressive immigration policies are now re-evaluating its reliability. If students and skilled workers view Canada as unstable or unwelcoming, the country could lose a competitive edge in attracting global talent. International students do not just bring tuition fees, they bring innovation, entrepreneurship, and cultural diversity, all of which have helped build Canada's global standing. If this decline in confidence continues, it could take years, or even decades, for Canada to regain its reputation as a leading destination for higher education and skilled migration. At the same time, these restrictive policies could create a brain drain effect, where talented individuals who initially plan to settle in Canada instead take their skills and expertise elsewhere. Countries that welcome these graduates will benefit from their contributions, while Canada risks losing a generation of highly skilled professionals. Businesses across various industries, from healthcare to engineering, are already warning that these policies could worsen labor shortages and slow down innovation. Instead of boosting the economy, this shift in immigration policy might undermine Canada's ability to compete in an increasingly globalized job market. The question remains: is this the future of Canadian immigration? Canada's future at a crossroads. What happens next? And that's the reality for international students in Canada right now. The dream of studying, working, and settling here is slipping away as new immigration policies make it harder than ever to stay. Will these policies change, or is Canada closing its doors for good? One thing is clear: this issue isn't going away. Students, universities, and businesses are already pushing back, and public pressure could force the government to reconsider. If you want to stay informed, subscribe to Canada Chronicles and turn on notifications so you don't miss any updates. Now, we want to hear from you. Do you think Canada is making the right decision? Are these policies fair to international students? Drop a comment below and let's get the discussion going. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.